I'm Carol.
I never thought I'd be the one to shatter the family I once held dear. But as I sat in the bank, staring at the security footage of my mother emptying my daughter Lily's cancer treatment fund, everything changed. The betrayal cut deep, like a knife through my heart. My father stood a few feet behind her, checking his watch impatiently, as if their actions were just another errand. It all started with a seemingly perfect life. I grew up in a small town outside of New York, in a family that appeared to be the picture of normalcy. My parents, Robert and Elizabeth, were well respected in the community. Dad was a retired school principal, known for his strict but fair demeanor, and Mom was a former nurse who was always the first to offer a helping hand. I was the responsible one, the daughter who followed the rules and worked hard. My brother, Ethan, 2 years older than me, was the wild child. He was charming, with a knack for getting into trouble, but always managing to charm his way out of it. I married my high school sweetheart, David, right after college. We were young and in love, dreaming of a future filled with a family and a happy home. 2 years later, Lily was born, a bundle of joy with her father's green eyes and my dark hair. For a while, life was idyllic. I worked as a real estate agent in our growing town, and David had a stable job at a local firm. But then, David announced that he had fallen in love with someone else. It was like a thunderbolt out of the blue. Within a few months, we were divorced, and I was left to raise Lily on my own. My parents stepped in immediately, offering their support and love. "Family takes care of family," Dad would say, patting my shoulder. I believed in the strength of our family bond with all my heart. With a determination to provide Lily with a stable life, I threw myself into my real estate career. Our town was experiencing a housing boom, and I quickly made a name for myself as an agent who went the extra mile. By the time Lily started elementary school, I was able to afford a nice 3-bedroom house with a backyard where she could play. My parents were there for every step of my journey. Mom would pick Lily up from school when I had showings, and Dad would help with small repairs around the house. When I had financial troubles, they were always there to lend a hand. Dad, being the meticulous man he was, helped me set up multiple bank accounts. There was one for operating expenses, one for taxes, an emergency fund, and a special savings account for Lily's future. I added my parents as authorized users on these accounts, thinking it was a sensible decision in case something happened to me. Life settled into a comfortable rhythm. I dropped Lily off at school, close deals during the day, and spend evenings helping with her homework or attending her school events. We'd have Sunday dinners together, filled with laughter and the smell of Mom's delicious roast chicken. The first sign of trouble was subtle. One Sunday dinner, Dad casually mentioned that he'd had a lucky night at a local casino. Mom quickly changed the subject, but I noticed the tension in the air. I knew Dad liked to play poker with his friends occasionally, but I never thought of him as a serious gambler. Mom assured me it was just a harmless hobby to pass the time since retirement, and I chose to believe her. 3 years ago, I stopped by my parents' house unexpectedly to give Mom a birthday gift. Through the half-open office door, I heard Dad on the phone, his voice strained. "I understand the foreclosure consequences. I just need more time," he said. I was shocked. I did some research that night and found out they were 3 months behind on their mortgage payments and foreclosure was imminent. Using my industry connections and a large part of my savings, I negotiated a repayment plan and secretly started making their mortgage payments. I didn't tell them, not wanting to hurt Dad's pride. I convinced myself it was just a temporary situation until they got back on their feet. Meanwhile, Ethan's life was a constant source of drama. He was always in and out of jobs, and his relationships never seemed to last. Dad always seemed to take his side, making excuses for his behavior. Ethan would come around during holidays, showering Lily with expensive gifts he couldn't afford and making big promises that he never kept. Then, Lily turned 7. She started having unusual bruises and seemed constantly tired. After weeks of tests, we received the devastating news. She had acute lymphoblastic leukemia. The treatment was expensive, and the experimental therapy that offered her the best chance of recovery would cost around $90,000, not covered by insurance. But I didn't hesitate. I was determined to save my daughter's life. I cut all unnecessary expenses, took on more listings, and worked long hours. Slowly, the savings account for Lily's treatment started to grow. After 8 months of hard work and sacrifice, I was just a few $1,000s short of our goal. But then, that fateful morning, I checked the account balance and found it empty. I called the bank, and they confirmed that my mother had made the withdrawal in person, accompanied by a man. I drove to the bank in a daze, and there, in the security footage, was the proof of their betrayal. When I confronted my parents at home, Dad tried to justify their actions. Ethan is in serious trouble. He owes some dangerous people a lot of money. It's a family emergency, he said. I was in disbelief. How could you choose Ethan over Lily? Her life is at stake. I shouted. It turned out that Ethan had been gambling heavily, and the people he owed money to had threatened his girlfriend, Sarah. Dad and Mom, always under Ethan's spell, decided to take Lily's treatment money to save him. They thought Lily still had a chance with conventional treatment, but I knew that the experimental therapy was her best shot. As if that wasn't enough, I also discovered that they had known about me paying their mortgage for years. They had received the bank notifications, but never said a word. And to make matters worse, bank statements showed that they had been secretly transferring small amounts of money from my account to Ethan's for a long time. I was filled with a mix of anger and sadness. I decided to take action. I canceled the automatic mortgage payments I'd been making for them. I knew they'd lose the house, but I couldn't continue to support their actions. I also started a GoFundMe campaign to try and raise the money for Lily's treatment. The story spread quickly. Our local newspaper ran an article about it, and soon, donations started pouring in. Strangers from all over the country were touched by Lily's story and offered their support. My ex-husband, David, also came back into the picture. He had heard about Lily's situation and decided to transfer to a local office. He wanted to be there for our daughter. Ethan's life started to fall apart. His employer found out about his unethical behavior and placed him on administrative leave. His girlfriend, Sarah, left him. And when he found out about the foreclosure of our parents' house, he showed up at my door, angry and defensive. But it was too late. The damage was done. The family I once knew was broken. However, in the midst of this chaos, I found a new sense of family. The community came together to support us, and David and I started to rebuild our relationship for Lily's sake. 6 months later, Lily completed her experimental treatment, and the scan showed no detectable cancer cells. We held a small celebration dinner with David, Uncle Charles, Dad's estranged brother who had also come back into our lives and helped us financially, and Lily. My parents were not there. We decided to keep a cautious distance, but I left the door open for them to prove that they could change. The holiday season brought another opportunity for healing. I decided to invite my parents to Thanksgiving dinner. It was awkward at first, but as the evening progressed, there were moments of hope. Uncle Charles raised his glass and said, "To second chances and the family we're rebuilding." Dad echoed his words, with tears in his eyes. Looking back, I've learned that family isn't always defined by blood. Sometimes, the people who are supposed to love and protect you can hurt you the most. But in the end, true family is about support, love, and accountability. And I'm determined to make sure that Lily grows up in a family that values these things. Have you ever experienced a family betrayal that forced you to redefine what family means? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If Lily's journey touched your heart, please consider subscribing to this channel for more stories of family, resilience, and rebuilding after betrayal. Your likes and shares help these stories reach others who might be struggling with similar situations. Thank you for being part of our extended family and for reminding us that even in our darkest moments, we're never truly alone. Until next time, remember that sometimes the family we choose becomes more precious than the family we're born into.